He wore custom suits and smiled like he belonged in every room. I wore stress on my skin and deadlines in my eyes. He was the CEO's nephew. I was the woman quietly holding the company's largest account together. And when they started handing him credit for my work, without even paying me for it, I told myself to stay silent, for now. For 7 years, I gave this company everything. I stayed late when no one asked me to. I skipped vacations to fix back-end integrations. No one else understood. I held projects together with duct tape and sheer determination. And when a recruiter offered me a project director role at a rival firm last spring with a $25K raise, I said no. Why? Because I still believed in loyalty, in being the kind of employee who stayed when things got tough, who earned her seat at the table, not demanded it. I believed that if I just kept doing the right thing, someone up there would notice. But they did notice, just not in the way I hoped. It started quietly after the restructuring. Management reshuffled teams, and I was placed under Victor, the kind of boss who had a gold-plated nameplate and a talent for delegating everything but praise. I didn't complain. Victor wasn't warm, but he wasn't hostile either. Just strategic. That's when Nathan appeared. Officially, Nathan was brought in to shadow the leadership team on high-impact projects. Unofficially, he was the CEO's 26-year-old nephew with a finance degree and 0 business scars. He didn't know the client, he didn't know the product, and he definitely didn't know what to do with a Gantt chart. Still, I was told he'd be leading the upcoming revamp for our largest client, Stratix Systems. Except, and this is where things turned, Victor pulled me aside and said, "Arya, just handle the operations. Nathan will take lead externally, but you'll be our anchor behind the scenes." At first, I was fine with it, maybe even flattered. I've never craved the spotlight. I thought, let the guy smile and pose for the client meetings. I'll keep things moving where it counts. But weeks passed, my inbox tripled. I managed 4 contractors and rewrote every single strategy deck. I worked weekends. I redlined presentations until my eyes blurred. Nathan didn't show up to any internal syncs, didn't respond to half the emails. He'd breeze in on Tuesdays for check-ins and ask things like, "What's a client portal login again?" Still, I held on, told myself it was temporary, that eventually it would be clear who was really driving this ship. Then came the monthly town hall. Victor stood on stage, beaming, slides flashed behind him, client logos, performance stats, revenue projections, and then a photo. Nathan shaking hands with the Stratix CFO with a bold caption underneath, "Project lead Nathan Weston delivers major Q3 breakthrough." I felt the words slice through me like paper cuts. No mention of the 40 hours I spent fixing the analytics dashboards that made that breakthrough possible. No recognition of the call I took at midnight to resolve the pricing misalignment before launch. Nothing. My phone buzzed. A message from a junior associate I'd mentored for years. "Wow. Didn't know Nathan was running the Stratix project. I thought that was all you?" I locked my screen, swallowed hard. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not exploded, not yet, but cracked. And that's when I realized silence wasn't strength. It was erasure in slow motion. I didn't expect an apology, but I did expect something. A follow-up. A quiet acknowledgement. "Hey, Arya. I know you've been holding it down behind the scenes." Instead, the day after the town hall, Victor walked by my desk mid-conversation with another manager, leaned in and said, "You saw the shout-out for Nathan, right? Big step forward for the Weston family." He laughed, like it was a joke only executives understood. I smiled. Or at least I think I did. My face moved, but my heart didn't. That week, the Stratix account got heavier. Victor told me we were entering Phase 2, and that he needed me to run tight coordination with Nathan moving forward. I wanted to ask how, when the man hadn't answered an email in 8 days, but I didn't. I just nodded, like I always did. The truth is, I knew how to operate without credit. Most women in this industry do. We become fluent in being background noise. polite enough to not rattle egos, efficient enough to be indispensable, quiet enough to stay overlooked. But the balance had shifted. This wasn't just about being invisible anymore. It was about being disposable. I started tracking hours. Not just clock in, clock out. The real hours. The 2 a.m. bug fixes, the reformatting of decks Nathan didn't open, the urgent messages from Victor asking me to just add a few graphs before the board preview tomorrow. I kept everything, every file, every version, every timestamp. At first, I didn't know why. Maybe I just needed proof for myself that I wasn't imagining it. Then came payroll Friday. I wasn't expecting a bonus, but I did hope for at least an adjustment. After all, Victor had promised that we'd revisit compensation after Phase 1. But when I opened my pay stub, the number hadn't moved, not even a cent. I went to HR, calmly. I asked if my role had been reclassified or if there were plans for merit-based increases tied to the project. The HR manager gave me that soft, rehearsed smile they reserve for lawsuits and breakdowns. Your title hasn't changed, so your pay scale remains aligned with previous cycles. Any performance-based reevaluation will go through your manager directly. Back to Victor then. I scheduled a meeting, showed him my tracker, told him I was concerned, not angry, not accusatory, just concerned. He glanced at my spreadsheet and leaned back in his chair. Arya, listen, I know you're doing a lot. That's why I trust you with it. But if you're thinking about money right now, you're missing the bigger picture. We're building legacy here. You want short-term gains or long-term position? I didn't answer, because if I had, I would have told him the truth. I'd already given them 7 years of long-term position, and now they were using my labor to pad the legacy of a man who hadn't earned his seat. After that, things got quieter. Victor stopped looping me into client meetings. Emails started landing in Nathan's inbox instead of mine. Madison, the client side lead, even emailed him a question once, only to forward it to me when he didn't respond. Can you take a quick look at this? Not sure what Nathan's doing with it. I responded, fixed the issue, kept moving. But that night, I lay awake and stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me, hearing Victor's voice on loop. If you're thinking about money right now, and I realized it was never just about money. It was about respect, and respect, once lost, rarely comes back quietly. The following week, something changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in the quiet, calculated way companies tend to kill morale, by omission, by erasure, by making you question whether you were ever really here to begin with. It started when I checked the internal project tracker. The system had recently been upgraded. All documents now required designated authorship tags, automatically assigning credit to whoever last touched a file. I opened the Stratix folder and scrolled. My name was missing from almost everything. Nathan's name was tagged on files I had created line by line, presentations I had formatted, data models I had built from scratch. Even the cover memo, the one I stayed up until 2 a.m. polishing, now listed him as the original contributor. I blinked, refreshed, checked timestamps. The metadata confirmed it. The files had been overwritten. Silently, methodically, my name was gone. It was the most surreal kind of theft, one that didn't take anything tangible, but still left you hollow, like someone had pulled your soul out of your own body and dressed it up as theirs. I confronted Victor in Slack. Arya. Quick cue. Noticed my author tags were removed from several deliverables. Was this intentional? Victor. We're consolidating for clarity. Nathan's name has stronger visibility with Stratix right now. You're still our engine. Just behind the curtain. A winking emoji. I stared at the screen. I don't know what stung more, the dismissal or the fact that he thought a cute symbol could smooth it over. That afternoon, Madison called. She was upbeat, cheerful as always. We hadn't spoken in a few weeks, just quick status updates, forwarded notes. But this time, she sounded different. Curious. Hey, random question. Did you switch roles or something? I keep seeing Nathan's name on all the Stratix files. Thought you were the one running point. I froze. I had rehearsed a dozen answers for this moment. Professional ones, harmless ones. But when her voice cracked into that familiar register, half friend, half business partner, I couldn't lie. No, I said softly. Still doing the same work. There was a pause on the line. Not long, just enough. So why is he listed everywhere? I exhaled. It's complicated. She didn't press. Madison's good at reading the air. But something shifted in her tone, too. Less brightness. More edge. Well, if you need to talk through anything, not just Stratix, I mean, you know where to find me. Thanks, I murmured. I'll be fine. But I wasn't. Not really. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, back against the wall, laptop open beside me. I looked through old photos from my early days at the company. Team retreats, coffee-fueled deadlines, messy whiteboards. I saw the younger version of me, hungry, hopeful, constantly reaching for the next rung. I remembered what it felt like to be seen. Now, I was a ghost with a badge. The next morning, an all-staff email went out. Congratulations to Nathan Weston for leading one of our most successful Q3 rollouts. Attached was a team photo. I wasn't in it. They hadn't even invited me. No mention of the 12 client calls I'd taken. No reference to the incident I de-escalated when the billing module glitched mid-pilot. Just Nathan, standing dead center, holding a plaque I didn't even know existed. At lunch, a junior developer came up to me and asked, "Hey, are you mentoring Nathan? He's totally killing it." I smiled. It was the kind of smile you wear to funerals. Polite, practiced, broken. That evening, as I packed up my laptop, I glanced at the silver bracelet on my wrist. A gift from Madison the day we launched our first successful campaign together. She'd said, "You're the kind of person who makes things happen, even when no one gives you the credit." At the time, it felt sweet, encouraging. Now it just felt like a reminder of everything I was letting slip through my fingers. I walked out into the cold Chicago air, my breath catching with every step. Somewhere between the freezing wind and the warmth of that bracelet against my skin, I made a promise I hadn't dared to speak out loud yet. They could steal my name, but not my voice. Not forever. It was the third night in a row I stayed past 10. The office lights had long shut off on motion sensors, but my screen still glowed like a quiet accusation. My fingers were numb. My back ached. I was on my 5th draft of the final presentation for Stratix's automation proposal, formatting it so Nathan could present it smoothly. Victor's words, not mine. Nathan hadn't logged into the shared drive all week. The last message I got from him was a forward email. "Hey, need slides tomorrow." No greeting, no thanks, just expectation. The kind of expectation that builds in men who've never had to earn things the hard way. And because I'm the kind of woman who still believes the work should speak louder than ego, I stayed. Tweaked graphs, checked for alignment issues, cross-referenced KPIs. I watched the moon crawl across the windows as I adjusted his speaking notes. I didn't even ask why anymore. I just moved like a machine. Precise, programmed, emotionally shut down. The next morning, the deck went out. The proposal was submitted. Stratix responded within hours. "Excellent work. Well articulated, precise, and compelling. Looking forward to next steps." The reply all praise chain began immediately. And of course, Nathan's name sat at the top of the thread. I scanned the thread 3 times. No mention of me, not even in the CC line. At noon, an email blast hit the company inbox. "Join us in congratulating Nathan Weston for leading our winning Stratix proposal. Delivered on time, under budget, and ahead of expectation." Attached, a photo of Nathan standing in the break room, holding a tray of cupcakes, grinning like he'd solved world peace. I felt my chest tighten, slowly, like a balloon pressed underwater. I stood up, left my desk, walked into the restroom, locked the stall. And finally, I cried. Not loud, not gasping, just quiet, shaking tears that blurred everything. I wasn't crying because of Nathan, or Victor, or the proposal. I was crying because I'd stopped fighting for myself. I'd let them normalize my erasure. I'd made it okay to be overlooked. My phone buzzed in my blazer pocket. Madison! I stared at the screen for a second too long before answering. Hey! Hey, you sound off. I swallowed hard. Long day. Silence. Then, her voice, low and steady. Aria, what's really going on? I sat down on the bathroom floor, the tile cold against my skin. And for the first time in months, I stopped pretending. I told her everything, not just the projects, the files, the tags. I told her about the night shifts, the vanished credit, the winking Slack messages. I told her about the cupcakes, about how my name didn't even live in the metadata anymore. She didn't interrupt, didn't rush. She just listened, like someone who knew the weight of being invisible. Then she said one sentence, quiet, sharp, deliberate. Let me handle it. I blinked. What do you mean? Just keep doing what you're doing. Finish what's on your plate. But do not take on one more thing for Nathan. Madison. Aria, I've got this. And with that, she hung up. I stared at the call log for a long moment, heart still raw, body still shaking. It wasn't a declaration of war, but it felt like someone had finally walked into the battlefield and stood beside me. For the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. I didn't hear from Madison for 2 days. No texts, no follow-ups, just silence. At first, I worried. Had I said too much? Was I selfish for dumping everything on her during a client engagement? But somewhere deep down, a quieter part of me, the part that still believed in friendship that survives the worst, told me to wait. On the third morning, an email dropped into Victor's inbox. He forwarded it to me without a greeting, just a subject line that read, Urgent. Stratix QBR restructure, client initiated. Quarterly business review meetings were usually scripted affairs. PowerPoint-heavy, pre-approved agendas. Tight time limits. But this wasn't the usual. Madison had requested a full leadership QBR, live, not pre-recorded, and she insisted that the strategic point lead from your side be present and available for real-time discussion. Victor called me into his office 5 minutes later. He was sweating. Okay, he began, forcing a smile. I need you to prep Nathan for the session. Madison wants him to walk through the architecture model live. She's getting more involved than usual. I blinked. Walk through the architecture? He nodded. Yes. Just send him a clean summary. Maybe dumb it down a little so it sounds polished. And polish the client-facing doc too. Names, roles, visuals. You know what to do. I sat very still. When's the meeting? Tomorrow morning, 9 hunk sharp. Stratix already sent the invite. CEO might join. My stomach twisted. He didn't know. Didn't know that Nathan couldn't explain a single wireframe in the system. Didn't know the doc he wanted me to clean up was built entirely from my post-midnight trial and error sessions. And most importantly, he didn't know Madison had written this script with a razor's edge. Back at my desk, I stared at the email. Madison wasn't calling me in. She was calling him out. And I had no intention of saving him this time. I updated nothing, rewrote nothing, let the untouched files sit where they were. Complex, technical, authentic. Mine. That night, I slept. For the first time in weeks, I didn't check my email before bed. Didn't reread notes. Didn't cry in the dark. I let the silence hold me instead. Let the weariness melt into quiet power. At 8:55 the next morning, I logged into the QBR Zoom call. My camera off. My mic muted. Victor appeared first, smiling hard. Nathan beside him, dressed sharply in a navy blazer he probably borrowed from his uncle's closet. Madison joined a moment later, flanked by 2 Stratix executives and, yes, their VP of Strategic Development, the man who controls the renewal contract. The energy shifted immediately. Madison didn't do small talk. Let's get started. We'll begin with a technical walkthrough. Nathan, can you walk us through the proposed data sync flow between the Stratix CRM and your internal tools? Silence. Nathan blinked, fumbled, clicked on the wrong slide. Yeah, sure. So, we're basically syncing. Syncing the data live through the back end. One of the Stratix VPs raised an eyebrow. Madison stayed perfectly still. Not angry, just waiting. Nathan looked at Victor, who cleared his throat and said quickly, "We may need Arya to support some of the back-end technicals here." My name. Finally. Madison looked at the screen. "Arya, are you on?" I unmuted. "Yes?" "Could you explain the sync logic, please?" I did, clearly, confidently. Every detail, every contingency. No notes, just knowledge. The kind that comes from actually building something, not posing beside it. When I finished, there was a beat of silence. Then Madison spoke. "Thanks, Arya. That aligns with what we expected. We just needed to hear it from the person who actually knows the system." No smile, no wink. Just truth. Victor flushed. Nathan stared down at his screen, defeated. And in that moment, I didn't feel victorious. I felt seen. The silence after I spoke wasn't awkward. It was calculated. Madison leaned forward ever so slightly, eyes fixed on Victor, not Nathan. "So, just to be clear, Arya is the one who built the integration, handled the logic, and managed the client comms. But Nathan was listed as project lead?" Victor cleared his throat. "Well, yes, but leadership isn't just about execution. Nathan coordinated strategy, handled executive-level expectations. You know, big picture framing." "That's interesting," Madison replied smoothly, "because from where I'm sitting, the big picture looks like a man taking credit for a woman's labor, and not very convincingly." Victor's smile faltered. Nathan shifted in his chair, then leaned toward the mic. "Look, I may not be as hands-on with the back end, but I was present." That word, present. Like presence equaled contribution. Like breathing the same air as a working woman somehow made him her equal. Madison smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We've worked with Arya for years. I've seen her debug code at 1 a.m. Oh, I've watched her walk junior devs through API errors without losing her patience. When we signed our renewal last year, she's the reason I didn't jump ship, so tell me again, why has her name been missing from every file since Q2? Victor opened his mouth to respond, but another voice cut through the call. "That's what I'd like to know as well." Everyone froze. The CEO had joined. His Zoom window flickered into place at the top corner of the screen. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between confusion and caution. "Sorry I'm late. Madison, I got your note. Sounds like this meeting uncovered some unexpected concerns?" Madison didn't flinch. "I'll be brief. We're reconsidering our Q4 renewal unless we receive a formal explanation as to why the person who's run every critical integration on our account has been deliberately hidden from view and why an unqualified relative has been elevated in her place." Victor's tone sharpened, defensive. "That's an aggressive accusation. I assure you, Arya is a valued contributor. This must be a miscommunication," Madison cut in. "Miscommunication doesn't last 6 months." Her voice had gone cold, the kind of cold that makes men who play politics forget how to breathe. "This isn't about one person. It's about what your company rewards. Arya worked. Nathan posed. We noticed. And if we noticed, so have your other clients." The CEO turned toward me, his face softened, but I didn't care. Too little, too late. "Arya, I wasn't aware of all this. I'd like to set up a separate call to hear more." "I'm available," I said, steady. Victor jumped in again. "Let's not overreact. We can realign assignments, make adjustments, clarify roles." Madison leaned back, arms folded. No need. We already know who built this. The only thing unclear is whether your company intends to fix it or keep pretending it didn't happen. Silence. The kind that feels like judgment settling into the air. Then the CEO nodded. There will be changes. I muted myself and turned off my camera. Not because I was done, because for the first time, I didn't need to prove anything. Not anymore. Victor was gone by the end of the week. No announcement, no farewell email, just a quiet void. His office door closed on a Friday, and by Monday, someone from HR was clearing out his things. Nathan didn't show up after that either. His Slack went gray. His name vanished from our documentation system the way mine once had, but no one seemed in a rush to put it back. Meanwhile, I was called into a closed-door meeting. The CEO apologized, sincerely, not with excuses, but with restitution. Full back pay, retroactive project bonuses, and a new title, Director of Strategic Implementation. No more invisible roles, no more behind the curtain. I didn't cry, not in the meeting, not when I signed the new contract. But that evening, when I walked past Victor's old office and saw the empty glass wall, my reflection looking back at me, stronger than I remembered. I paused. My silver bracelet caught the light. That was when I let the tears fall, not because I was sad, but because I was finally whole again. Madison renewed the Stratix partnership. 3 more years, locked in. Her only condition? I would be the sole point of contact. I didn't ask for it. She didn't offer it out of pity. She offered it because I earned it. Every single line of code. You don't always recognize the moment they start erasing you, not until it's nearly done. And sometimes, the loudest act of rebellion is refusing to stay invisible. I know I'm not the only one who's done the work while someone else got the title, the raise, the spotlight. Have you ever had your name erased, been told to stay humble while someone else stood where you built the ground? If you've ever been the backbone they refuse to acknowledge, tell me. Drop your story below, because your silence doesn't serve you. But your voice? It just might save someone else.